Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. It is a pleasure for me to give this brief introduction to this webinar. I will present the Secretariat's activities for enhancing effective participation in the work of the CRC and the POP-ROC. I will give an overview, and I will then speak about the mandate for this work. I will then introduce the benefits for parties and members, and I will briefly introduce the activities. So the first part, the mandate. The mandate to enhance effective participation in the work of the CRC and the POP-ROC to cooperate and exchange information among scientific and technical bodies stems from the synergy decisions. So let's see which are these decisions. The first decision was adopted the first decisions were adopted in 2008 and 2009 by the conferences of the parties when they adopted the recommendations of the ad hoc joint working group, which requested the secretariats to facilitate the exchange of relevant information between technical and scientific bodies of the three conventions through sharing information with one another. Following these decisions that you see mentioned here in this slide, in 2010, the ex-COPS-1 in Bali decided and requested the Secretariat in the Omnibus decision to prepare joint activities to be included in the work plans of the three conventions. The work plans that were being approved in the upcoming ordinary meetings of the three conventions. And these joint activities included activities to facilitate the exchange of relevant information between the technical and scientific bodies of the three conventions. As a result, and as mentioned in 2011, following the ex-COP1, the three conferences of the parties included in their respective programs of work a joint activity to enhance cooperation among the scientific and technical bodies of the three conventions and to identify common issues and linkages between them. This was S6. Another important step, which describes the current mandate in 2013, the conferences of the parties adopted a technical assistance program, including activities on cross-cutting issues, such as support of the work of the scientific bodies of the Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions. This is activity 17, and it is specifically on training and capacity building to enhance the implementation of the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions at the regional and national levels, including enhancing effective participation in the work of the technical and scientific bodies. Also, in 2013, in the Omnibus decision adopted at COP2, there was a new mandate for the future. In fact, the ex-COP2 recommended to accelerate the implementation of joint activities between the POP-ROC and the CRC in 2014 and 15, and requested to align the scientific bodies' working arrangements to allow for mutual information sharing and effective participation. And also, it requested them to discuss further steps to enhance the coordination between them. Now I will briefly describe the benefits for parties and members. The planned activities are targeting past, current and future members of the POP-ROC and CRC, as well as parties and observers. The benefits for such members and parties of an effective participation and coordination are threefold. First, it will allow this activity to exchange information on current names of chemicals and on risk evaluations of chemicals included in both conventions, which will enhance efficiency of both scientific bodies and avoid duplication of efforts. Secondly, It will create more opportunities for networking among experts to exchange experiences and support the work of institutions in the different UN regions. And finally, it will build capacity. Inception workshops are planned for new CRC members, and participation in POPROC sessions will be possible as observers. Support will be provided by, or it is normally provided by, the Secretariat in the day-to-day activities and the intersessional work. Webinars and workshops are organized to enhance the effective participation of members from developing countries and countries with economies in transition. Let's have a look now at the activities. For the second time, the 10th meetings of the CRC and the POPROC will be held back-to-back in October 2014 in Rome, in Italy, very soon. Several webinars are taking place on the topic of effective participation and coordination between the two scientific bodies. Workshops will also be organized for members and stakeholders of CRC and POPROC. One will be held in November-December 2014 for English-speaking African countries, and 2 regional workshops will be taking place in 2015. One workshop took place of this series took place in Dakar, in Senegal, last November, in November 2013. It was for French-speaking members and countries, and parties, DNAs, national focal points, NGOs of the region. I thank you very much for your attention, and now I'll pass the floor back to the host, Dan.
Yes, thank you, and good evening for all of you attending this webinar today. I'm going to present the introductory part of this presentation, which is the draft guidance to assist parties to the Rotterdam Convention and the CRC when a chemical under consideration is a POP listed under the Stockholm Convention. And then my colleague Miriam Singh will go on the other part of the presentation with the specific examples. How can I go down? So I'm trying to change the slides, so it didn't work. I start with a brief introduction and background for how this document was developed. This guidance document was requested by the ex-COP 2, which was held in June 2013. And then the COP asked the CRC and the POPROC in their first joint meeting, which was held in Rome in October 2013, to initiate the process of developing this guidance document. So a joint intersessional working group prepared the first draft, including the existing guidance. This is was started in December 2013, and there was 3 rounds of comments so far has been done, 2 for the task group members, and 1 for all CRC and POPROC members and observers, and this was concluded in June 2014. The draft will be presented to both the CRC 10 as well as to the POPROC 10, which will be held for the meeting, which will be held back-to-back in October 2014 in Rome. The guidance, the structure of this guidance was based on the chain of events in the Rotterdam Convention processes, and this was done mainly to minimize duplication. So there are 4 basic events which will take place in the process of Rotterdam Convention, which are the notification of final regulatory action by a party, and then the second on the step, which is the review of this notification by the Chemical Review Committee, and then the third will be the development of the draft decision guidance document, which is a DGD, and then the last step will be concluded by the submission of import responses after the chemical is listed in Annex 3 of Rotterdam Convention. So that each chapter addresses parties as well as the CRC whenever it's relevant, and so it indicates which part that it can be the parties and the CRC can get benefit from the process of the Stockholm Convention. So I'll start with the first step of the first event, which is the submission of the final regulatory action. And as we know, that is each party is obligated to notify the Rotterdam Convention Secretariat by any decision which take place, any final regulatory action which take place, which is called, maybe here it's a national plan or a severe restriction of a chemical. It has to notify to the Secretariat that it took this regulatory action against this chemical. And this is done also if the pop chemical is nationally prohibited or restricted by implementation of Stockholm Convention. So in either cases, it has to notify the big Secretariat by the national decision. Then the Chemical Review Committee, it needs detailed information on the basis on which this final regulatory action is based. Say, if there is a risk evaluation available, and if the prevailing condition within the notifying party has been considered. In addition, say for example, if there is any public risk profile, risk management evaluation, that can be also taken into consideration when the CRC look at the documentation. And if the supporting documentation, because also the CRC, when they examine and review the notification, they need to look at the supporting documentation behind this final regulatory action. And in many cases, this supporting documentation will be sometimes, in many cases, will be very huge and voluminous, which is difficult to review, as well as sometimes it will be in a language which is not in English. And we all know that CRC operate only in English. So in this case, a focus summary in English has to be provided by the notifying country. And then when the chemical is reviewed by the CRC, there's also many cases that is relevant to when the chemical is a pump. Say for example, when the Chemical Review Committee prepare the priority for the meeting, prioritize its work for the meeting, it gives lower priority for chemical already subject to other multi-environmental agreements, say for example, for a Stockholm Convention or subject to Montreal Protocol. And also, there are many relevant issues that we have to identify to look at the identity of the chemical or a group of substance. This is the point that we have to take care of, because sometimes the identity of the chemical differ between Rotterdam Convention, which is part of the notification process, as well as the chemical which is subject to the Stockholm Convention. So sometimes there are different isomers, there are different esters, group of chemicals, as in the case of octa-PD. And my colleague Mariam will also focus or highlight this type of specific examples. So the CRC has to examine clearly if the chemical subject to the Rotterdam Convention look at the identity of the chemical to match that is the same chemical or not. So the CRC evaluation is the recommendation, but the information given in the CRC evaluation is only limited to the information given by the notifying country, whether it's in the notification form or in the supporting documentation. So it's quite limited piece of information that is will be available to the CRC. Also, the CRC has to determine if the criterion 2B(III) is met. In this case, whether the final regulatory action is taken as a base of risk evaluation and the prevailing condition. And in this case here, it can look at any breaching information that can be used. Many countries can utilize the information in the risk profile or the risk management evaluation from the Stockholm Convention, from the BOBROC, and can be used. This information can be breached to the local condition within the notifying country. And here in this case, the CRC guidance document on breaching is also available. So the CRC also developed a guidance document on how to use to breach the information from other sources. Also, when the CRC also examine or review the notification, submitted notification, also there's another criteria, which criteria C of Annex 2, C4, which is information on if there is any evidence on ongoing trade on a chemical. And here the information from Stockholm Convention on use, on production, on releases can be useful. Also the information on requested exemption from Stockholm Convention restrictions. Many countries that sometimes, they requested certain exemption for use of certain kind of chemical, and so it might be used as indication of ongoing trade on that chemical, because when the CRC evaluates the chemical, it has to show if there is any evidence on ongoing trade of that chemical. Then the third chain of event, which is the development of the draft decision guidance document. And this is done if the chemical in question fulfill all the criteria, that is to be a big chemical, then the CRC should start drafting a decisions guidance document. And here the information found in the risk profile, risk management evaluation might be used for certain section of the draft of the decisions guidance document. Say, for example, on identification and uses, on alternatives, as well as on waste management. So these are various types of information that the CRC can get from the POPROC risk profile, risk management evaluation. And then the fourth chain of event, which is the submission of import responses after listing a chemical in Annex 3. And if a POP chemical has been added to Annex 3 of the Rotterdam Convention, then each party has to submit an import response according to Article 10 of the Rotterdam Convention. This import response should indicate whether the party would like to receive further shipment of that chemical based on informed or take informed decisions on future import of that chemical. And here parties can make use their national decision, which is taken under the Stockholm Convention, to help them to make their import responses, especially for chemicals such as industrial chemicals, where there are no national legal infrastructures available in many of the developing countries. And so that in that case, if they already took a decision on that chemical under Stockholm Convention, this can help them to use it as a basis and submit their import responses under Article 10, which is an obligation under Article 10 of Rotterdam Convention. And even if the party to the Rotterdam Convention has already taken a national decision on a POP chemical in Stockholm, then that's also it's required also to submit these import responses to submit it, and can use their decision, which has been based on on information given for them from the Stockholm Convention, and they took this national decision, and they can use that also as a basis for their import responses that it has to be submitted under Article 10 of Rotterdam Convention. And so this is basically the four elements of this guidance document, which is just a submission of final regulatory action, the review of the notification by the Chemical Review Committee, the development of the decision guidance document, as well as the submission of the import response. And then my colleague Mariam will go in specific examples where CRC and countries, parties make use of the information available from the POPROC or from Stockholm Convention. There are so many comments which have been received as substantial, as well as some of them are editorial, and all of them they help to improve the draft. And they are received from different countries, which has been shown: Egypt, Qatar, EU, CropLife, USA, and Canada, and so on. And these comments were reflected in the table of comments, which will be given as IN15 document to the CRC 10, as well as INF12 document to the POPROC 10. And we still have some comment of the unit which has not been included. The next step, after consideration of this guidance document by CRC 10 and POPROC 10, an intersessional drafting group may be tasked to collect additional comments and finalize the draft guidance, and it will be presented to COP7, and then COP7 might take note or approve the document, and then could be end up in to be added to the compilation of guidance document of the Rotterdam Convention. With this, Mr. Chair, I turn the floor back to you, and thank you for attention.
Thank you, Dan, and welcome everybody. I will now try to convey some examples to you which follow the same logics or sequence of events as already presented by my colleague Zari. The first example is when a country submits a final regulatory action on a POP chemical. There are two examples, two chemicals for which a ban has been notified by Canada, and in their notification forms to the Secretariat, they referred to the POP property of those two substances in two sections, which were the section on socio-economic effects and the section on the relevance of their action to other states and regions. And Canada used in both notifications almost the same wording. They said, as you can see here on the screen, that the chemicals have been identified as POPs under the Stockholm Convention. As a result of past releases, POPs are now widely distributed over large regions, and in some cases they are found around the globe. There is another example for a final regulatory action on a POP chemical. This is a notification from Japan for PFOS. Japan has used data from the POPROC risk profile in two sections, one on physical-chemical properties and one on toxicological properties. And Japan also used the POPROC risk profile. It added the complete document as a supporting documentation to their notification. Japan also referred to the POP properties of PFOS in their section on hazard or risk evaluation. They stated that as a result of a national evaluation, they had used scientific data from the POPROC risk profile, and that the national authorities in Japan had concluded that PFOS meets their national criteria to be designated as a Class 1 specified chemical substances, which means in Japanese law that this is a toxic and a bioaccumulative chemical and is therefore banned. We continue now with the review of notification by the CRC as regards criteria B1I and B2I of Annex 2. This is the same example, PFOS, the PFOS notification from Japan. And you can see the results of the CRC's evaluation in the task group report and also in the meeting report of CRC 7. And those two criteria, they depict that the CRC should make sure that in the risk evaluation, the data that were used should be generated according to scientifically recognized methods, and that the data reviews were performed and documented according to generally recognized scientific principles and procedures. The CRC also noted that the exposure data, there were some exposure data that were generated in Japan, and this was also done according to scientifically recognized methods. As to the often most critical criterion B3 of Annex 2, where the CRC has to confirm that the risk evaluation has taken into account prevailing conditions in the notifying country, the CRC in this case has concluded that data from the pop rock risk profile was taken into account in the Japanese risk evaluation, and that together with monitoring data from Japan, the existing severe restriction of PFAS in Japan to very few uses should be maintained in order to protect human health. This is just a summary. You can find the more detailed reasoning text in the DGD for PFAS on page 13. As to criterion C4, where the CRC should consider if there is evidence of ongoing international trade in the chemical, there is one example from an earlier CRC, CRC2, where from the notification for Mirex from Canada, the CRC has taken the fact into account that two parties to the Stockholm Convention had requested exemptions from the Stockholm Convention restrictions for Mirex, and that this fact indicated that trade could possibly still occur. After two notifications for one chemical from two different PIC regions have been confirmed to fulfill all necessary criteria by the CRC, the next step is the preparation of a decision guidance document. And in the next few slides, I will show you some examples from the decision guidance document for PFAS, and in which sections of this draft of this decision guidance document information from the Stockholm Convention was used. In the first section of the DGD, there is a paragraph on uses in the regulated category, and it says here that with a separate heading of referring to the Stockholm Convention, that there were several historical and current uses of PFAS, and also a statement that PFAS is a POP, and that it is still produced and probably used in several countries. And this information is from the risk profile on PFAS from 2006. In the DGD section 3.3 on possible alternatives, it is stated that the POPROC developed guidance on alternative to PFAS, and in that guidance there's a long table on use areas of PFAS and also on alternatives. This table is too long for this presentation, but it has been copied into the DGD and you can also find it there. In section 4.5 on waste management, it is stated that at the time when the DGD was drafted, the Basel Convention was about to develop technical guidelines on the environmentally sound management of POPs, or they will be updated to encompass also PFAS and other new POPs that had been listed in the Stockholm Convention in 2009. So everyone interested in waste management is referred to that guidance, which I don't doubt is now updated. As to the annex to the DGD, section 4.1 on fate and behavior in the environment, and also in many other sections of this Annex 1, the reference is made to the relevant information from the pop rock risk profile or risk management evaluation. For example, it says here that PFOS is an atypical pop which does not partition into fatty tissues, followed by accumulation. And well, you can read the rest of that yourself. So I'm sorry, I seem to be unable to change the slide. Oh, this is because it's the last one. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your comments and questions, and give back the floor to our host.